Imagine this. You're finally getting a rare holiday treat at work. Premium pistachios, the rich man's nut, something your underpaid team never sees. Then your arrogant VP, who makes 5x your salary and killed your raises, struts in, rips open the bag, stuffs his face, and smirks. I love the rich man's nut. He does it every day, steals your joy while hoarding his own baskets. But one woman in Chicago snaps. What starts as quiet rage turns into a cold, calculated master plan that brings him down. Hard. From anonymous tips to a viral town hall takedown, watch how Alara flips the power and gets the sweetest revenge. This is the Reddit revenge story that'll have you cheering. You ready? Hi, everyone. My name is Alara Voss, and if you're here, you probably already know that gut-twisting feeling when someone with all the power decides to remind you that you have none. I live in Chicago, the real Chicago, not the postcard version. I'm talking wind that cuts through your coat on the L platform, overpriced rent in a Wrigleyville walk-up, and a job downtown where the lake view from the 28th floor belongs to the executives, not to people like me. I've been at Apex Dynamics for 5 years now. My official title is Senior Data Analyst, but what that really means is I'm part of the back-end crew, the invisible engine that keeps the whole company running. While the sales and client-facing teams are out whining and dining, closing million-dollar deals and getting their names on plaques, my department spends 12-hour days cleaning data, fixing models, and making sure nobody notices the mistakes until we've already saved the day. We're good at what we do. Really good. But good doesn't get you gift baskets during the holidays. Every December, the office transforms into this weird corporate Christmas market. Clients and vendors send these massive ribbon-wrapped baskets, gourmet chocolates from Belgium, aged cheddar from Vermont, truffle-infused oils, bags of nuts that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. They pile up in the break rooms of the flashy departments, marketing, sales, executive row. Our corner of the floor? We usually get nothing, maybe a half-eaten box of off-brand cookies if someone feels charitable. But this year was different. Someone from marketing, bless her, decided to share. 2 full baskets showed up on our cluster of desks one morning. Actual beautiful baskets. We gathered around like kids on Christmas morning, laughing as we unpacked them. There were rosemary crackers, dark chocolate sea salt caramels, a wheel of brie big enough to share, and the star of the show, these massive bags of premium pistachios. Shelled, lightly salted, the kind you only see in airports for $20 a pop. For the first time in years, it felt like someone had noticed we existed. My teammate Jen snapped a photo of us holding up the pistachios like we'd won the lottery. We were happy, genuinely happy. That's when the door opened, and Victor Hargrove walked in. Victor is the vice president of operations, early 50s, tall, always in a perfectly tailored suit that probably costs more than my car, salt and pepper hair, a smile that never reaches his eyes, and a voice that booms just enough to remind you he's in charge. Everyone knows Victor. He's the guy who gives the big speeches at company town halls, promising growth and opportunity while somehow never mentioning the departments that actually make it possible. Last spring, when raises were on the table, he fought hard for the executive bonus pool. Our 2% increase vanished into budget constraints. I still remember the email, difficult decisions in a challenging market. Meanwhile, his new Porsche showed up in the executive garage a week later. He didn't knock. He never does. Just strode in like he owned the place, which in his mind he kind of does. The laughter in our office died instantly. 6 pairs of eyes tracked him as he scanned the room, zeroing in on the baskets like a shark smelling blood. "Well, well," he said, that fake jovial tone dripping from every word. "Looks like someone's been naughty and nice this year." Nobody answered. We just watched as he stepped closer, hands already reaching. He picked through the first basket slowly, deliberately, like he was appraising inventory. A handful of chocolates disappeared into his palm, then the rosemary crackers. Then he moved to the second basket, the unopened one we'd been saving for New Year's week. He tore the cellophane off without asking, ripped it like it was nothing. His fingers dug in, pushing past the cheaper items until they closed around the bag of pistachios, the expensive ones. He held it up, admiring the label, then cracked it open right there in front of us, grabbed a huge fistful, and tossed them into his mouth like they were M&Ms. "Ah," he said, chewing loudly, eyes half closed in exaggerated pleasure. "Rich man's nut." The words landed like a slap. My chest tightened instantly. A hot flush crawled up my neck. I felt Jen freeze beside me. Nobody laughed. Nobody even forced a smile. Victor just kept eating, crunching away, completely oblivious, or worse, completely aware of the silence he'd created. Rich man's nut. He makes 5 times my salary, probably more. He gets his own baskets, multiple, delivered straight to his corner office with the lake view. I've seen them stacked behind his desk, unopened, while he comes down here to pick through ours. And now he's standing in our space, eating our one small holiday treat and calling it the rich man's nut, like it's a punchline only he gets. He took another handful, then tucked the half-empty bag under his arm. "Thanks for sharing, team." He flashed that shark smile. "Keep up the great work." And then he was gone. The door clicked shut. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Someone finally exhaled. Jen tried to joke, "Well, at least he left us the crackers," but her voice cracked. I couldn't even pretend to laugh. My hands were clenched so tight under my desk that my nails left crescents in my palms. My throat felt dry, like I'd swallowed sand. I drove home that night through slushy streets, holiday lights blurring past the windshield. All I could hear was his voice, "Rich man's nut," over and over. It wasn't about the pistachios. It was never just about the pistachios. It was the casual cruelty of it, the reminder that people like Victor can take whatever they want, whenever they want, from people like me, and there's nothing we can do about it. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smug face, felt that burn in my chest all over again. He'd be back tomorrow. I knew it. And something inside me already knew I couldn't let this go on. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing had happened. Same routine. Swipe my badge, ride the elevator up to 28, nod at the security guard who barely looks up from his phone. But inside, everything felt different. My stomach was knotted tight, like I'd swallowed a rock. I kept replaying Victor's voice in my head. "I do love the rich man's nut," and every time that same hot flush crawled up my neck. The baskets were still on the shared table when I got to my desk. What was left of them, anyway. The pistachio bag sat there half empty, the top folded over like someone had tried to pretend it was still full. Jen was already at her station, headphones on, typing furiously. She glanced up when I sat down and gave me this tight little smile that said, "We're not talking about it." Nobody was. We all just carried on. Spreadsheets, emails, the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, but the air felt heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. And then, at 10:17 a.m., I remember the exact time because I was watching the clock like a hawk, the door opened again. Victor. Same suit, different tie, same stride, same shark smile. "Morning, team," he called out, loud enough that everyone had to look up. He didn't wait for responses, just walked straight to the baskets like he was on a mission. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pretended to focus on my screen, but my eyes kept flicking to him. He went straight for the pistachios this time. No browsing, no pretense, just grabbed the bag, shook it to hear how much was left, and poured a big handful into his palm. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He chewed with his mouth slightly open, scrolling his phone at the same time like he was waiting for coffee to brew. I felt Jen tense beside me. Across the aisle, Marcus stopped typing mid-sentence. Nobody said a word. Victor took another handful, then another. He was polishing off what was left of the premium bag, the one we'd all been so excited about. When it was empty, he crumpled it up and dropped it back into the basket like trash. "These really are the best," he said to no one in particular, licking salt off his fingers. "You can taste the difference when something's top shelf." My hands were shaking under my desk. Actual shaking. I had to press them flat against my thighs to stop it. He lingered for another minute, peeking through the remaining items, grabbed a sleeve of crackers, a couple of the good chocolates, then finally turned to leave. "Oh, and Alara," he said, pausing at the door. My name in his mouth made my skin crawl. "Great job on the Q4 projections. Really solid work." He flashed that smile again and was gone. Great job, like he was doing me a favor by noticing I existed, like stealing our one holiday treat and then tossing me a crumb of praise made it all okay. The door clicked shut and the room exhaled. Jen pulled her headphones off. "Did he just compliment you?" "Yeah," I muttered. My voice sounded flat even to me. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. Man's got some nerve. But that was it. No one said anything else. We all just went back to work. Because what else could we do? Complain to HR about the VP eating gifted nuts? Get labeled difficult right before bonus season? Risk our jobs over a bag of pistachios? I spent the rest of the day in a fog. Every crunch I imagined was him eating more. Every notification ping made me flinch, thinking it was the door opening again. He came back the next day, and the day after that. It became this sick little ritual. Mid-morning, Victor would appear. Sometimes he'd say something about checking in on the team. Sometimes he wouldn't bother with an excuse. He'd just help himself. Always the best stuff first, always the pistachios if there were any left, always with that same smug satisfaction. By the end of the week, both baskets were nearly empty. The fancy cheeses were gone, the chocolates were down to the weird flavors nobody likes. All that remained were some sad crackers and a jar of fig jam someone had already opened and abandoned. I started noticing things I hadn't before. How Victor's own baskets, 3 of them beautifully wrapped, sat untouched in his office. I walked past on my way to a meeting and saw them through the glass wall, still sealed, ribbons perfect. He wasn't sharing with anyone, not his assistants, not the other execs, definitely not us. But he kept coming to our floor, kept taking from us. One afternoon, he showed up while I was alone in the office grabbing coffee, just the 2 of us. He didn't even acknowledge me at first, just went straight for the last sleeve of pistachios someone had hidden in the back of the second basket. I stood there, mug in hand, watching him rip it open. "You know," he said conversationally, not looking at me, "people don't appreciate quality unless someone shows them what it looks like." He popped a few in his mouth. Crunch. My throat was so dry I could barely swallow. I wanted to say something, anything. "Those aren't yours. We don't get anything else. You already have your own." But the words stuck, because who was I? Just an analyst, just a cog, and he was the VP. He left without another word. That night, I didn't go straight home. I walked along the lakefront path, wind whipping off the water, holiday lights reflecting on the waves. My phone buzzed with texts from friends asking about New Year's plans. I didn't answer. All I could think about was how small he made me feel, how every visit carved a little more out of me. The anger was there, burning hot, but underneath it was something worse. Shame. Shame that I hadn't spoken up. Shame that I just stood there and let it happen. Shame that part of me still hoped if I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, maybe one day I'd be on the other side of that power. I got home late, heated up leftovers I didn't taste, lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He'd be back tomorrow, I knew it, and every time he came, the wound went a little deeper. I wasn't sure how much more I could take before something inside me broke completely. By the 3rd week of December, the holidays were in full swing everywhere except our office. Michigan Avenue was lit up like a fairy tale, storefronts blasting Mariah Carey, strangers smiling at each other on the train. But on the 28th floor of Apex Dynamics, the mood was sour, brittle, ready to snap. The baskets were almost gone now, just a few sad crackers, a half-eaten jar of jam, and one last sleeve of those premium pistachios someone had tried to hide behind the brie. We'd all silently agreed to save it, to make it last until New Year's, maybe even take it home and split it. A tiny rebellion, a small thing we could control. Victor shattered that on December 23rd. It was late morning, right in the middle of our weekly team sync. Jen was presenting the final Q4 dashboard, something we'd all stayed until midnight the night before to finish. The room was focused, laptops open, coffee cups half empty. We were proud of this one. It was clean, insightful, the kind of work that quietly saves the company millions without anyone ever thanking us. The door swung open without a knock. Victor strode in, mid-sentence from a phone call he was finishing. "Yeah, tell them we'll circle back after the holidays," he said loudly into his AirPod, then pulled it out and slipped it into his pocket. He didn't apologize for interrupting, didn't even acknowledge Jen standing at the front with her slides still glowing on the screen. He walked straight to the table where the remnants of the basket sat. We all watched in silence as he rummaged through the last bits. His hand pushed aside the crackers, the jam, the cheap almond tin. Then he found it, the hidden sleeve of pistachios. He held it up like he discovered buried treasure. "Ah, there you are," he said, grinning. "Thought you could hide from me." He tore the top open with his teeth, poured a massive handful into his mouth and crunched loudly. Salt dust fell onto his tie. He didn't care. Jen's voice faltered. As I was saying, the anomaly detection model." Victor waved a hand without looking at her. Keep going," he mumbled through a full mouth, already pouring another handful. The room went dead. I felt it hit everyone at once. Marcus's jaw clenched so tight I saw the muscle twitch. Jen's face flushed red, then pale. Someone in the back closed their laptop with a sharp click. Victor leaned against the table, casually eating our very last good thing while we sat there like statues. And then he did it again. He looked right at the group, at all of us, and said, "You know, these really are the rich man's nut, worth every penny. You can taste the difference when something's meant for people who appreciate quality." He chuckled at his own joke, crunched another handful, let the empty sleeve drop into the trash can like it was nothing. Then he clapped his hands once, sharp and loud. "Great energy in here, team. Love to see it. Carry on." And he left. The door clicked shut. For a full 10 seconds, nobody moved, nobody breathed. Jen stared at the screen where her dashboard still glowed, numbers and charts that suddenly felt meaningless. Then she quietly sat down. Marcus muttered under his breath, "Mother?" I didn't hear the rest. Blood was roaring in my ears. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was different. Not fear, not shame. Rage, pure white-hot rage. I stood up so fast my chair rolled back and hit the wall. Everyone looked at me. "I need air," I said. My voice sounded strange, low, tight, like it belonged to someone else. I walked out, didn't grab my coat, just took the stairs down 28 flights, lungs burning, tears stinging my eyes that I refused to let fall. Outside, the Chicago wind hit me like a slap. I walked fast, no destination, just moving, past the ice rink at Millennium Park, past tourists taking selfies with the bean, past street vendors selling roasted chestnuts that smelled too sweet. I ended up on the lakefront trail again, hands shoved deep in my pockets, breath coming in sharp clouds. That's when it all crashed in. Every moment of the last few weeks replayed in fast forward. The first theft, the daily raids, the compliments that felt like mockery, the way he talked over us, walked over us, treated us like the help. And beneath that, older wounds opened up too. The promotion I'd been next in line for, given to a guy with half my experience because he golfed with Victor. The late nights I'd put in fixing errors caused by his precious client-facing teams. The raise that disappeared while his bonus grew. The way he'd once called my analysis cute in a meeting with all men who laughed along. I stopped walking and stared out at the gray waves crashing against the break wall. Something inside me broke open, not in defeat, in clarity. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to swallow it anymore. I wasn't going to let him take one more thing. Not the pistachios, not my dignity, not my silence. My hands steadied, my breathing slowed. I turned around and started walking back towards the office, the wind at my back now instead of in my face. By the time I got to my desk, I knew what I was going to do. Not yet the full plan. No, that would come later. But the decision was made. Victor Hargrove had been stealing from me for years. It was time I started taking something back, and he wasn't going to see it coming. Christmas Eve came and went. I didn't put up a tree this year, didn't bake cookies with friends, didn't even play the usual holiday playlist on my drive home. The city was wrapped in lights and cheer, but inside me, everything had gone quiet. Not the defeated kind of quiet, the dangerous kind. The kind that comes right before a storm hits. I walked back into the office on December 26th with a new kind of clarity. No more tight chest, no more shaking hands, just focus. Cold, sharp, unbreakable. Outwardly, nothing had changed. I still said good morning to the security guard, still nodded at Jen when I passed her desk, still smiled that polite, professional smile when someone asked how my holiday was. Quiet, I'd say, just what I needed. And they'd nod, satisfied, because nobody ever digs deeper when you give them the answer they want to hear. But inside, I was transforming. I started watching Victor like he was a dataset I needed to reverse engineer. His schedule was predictable once you paid attention. He'd roll in around 8:45, black coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Morning meetings with the C-suite from 9 to 11. Then he'd disappear into his corner office until lunch, usually a power meal with clients or vendors at some steakhouse downtown. Afternoons were lighter. A few internal check-ins, some golf-related calls if the weather was decent in Florida, where he kept his second home. He'd swing by the executive break room around 3 p.m. for an espresso, then make his rounds. And almost every day, between 10 and 11 a.m. or right after lunch, he'd find his way to our floor. I started timing it, logging it, not on company devices, never that stupid, on my personal phone in a locked notes app. Date, time in, time out, items taken, exact quotes if he said anything particularly infuriating. I even snapped discrete photos, the untouched baskets in his office versus the ravaged ones in ours. The contrast was stark, criminal almost. I began talking to people I'd never really talked to before. Not complaining, no, that would have been too obvious. Just casual conversations. Hey, did your team get any good baskets this year? I'd ask the admins in sales or marketing. They'd light up, show me photos of towers of Godiva and Harry and David pears. I'd laugh, say how lucky they were. Then I'd gently ask, does Mr. Hargrove ever swing by your area for treats? The answer was always the same. No, never. He has his own delivered straight to his office. Piece by piece, the picture formed. This wasn't random greed. This was targeted. He didn't raid the departments that could push back, the ones full of extroverts and executives' pets. He came to us because he knew we wouldn't say anything, because we were the quiet ones, the reliable ones, the invisible ones. That realization didn't make me angrier, it made me calmer. I started preparing. Evenings after work, instead of collapsing on the couch with Netflix and wine, I turned my tiny apartment into a war room. Sticky notes on the wall, timelines, policies, names. I pulled up the company handbook online, every section on gifts, conflicts of interest, executive conduct, highlighted the parts about declaring high-value client gifts over a certain amount, noted how executives were supposed to redistribute or donate excess, not hoard. I dug deeper. Public records sites, LinkedIn, even old expense reports that had been leaked in a data breach a couple years back. Victor liked luxury, liked being seen as the big man, but he was sloppy. Vendor lunches that blurred into personal favors, golf trips sponsored by companies we did business with. Baskets weren't the only thing he treated as his personal perk. I started working out again, hard, not for vanity, for strength, the kind that comes from knowing you're building something inside yourself no one can take away. I'd run along the lakefront at dusk, breath burning, legs screaming, letting the rage fuel every stride. By the time I got home, my body was exhausted, but my mind was razor sharp. At work, I was flawless, calm, composed. I'd smile at Victor when he walked in now, even say, "Good morning, Mr. Hargrove," in this perfectly neutral tone. He'd nod back, never noticing how my eyes tracked his every move. One day, he came in looking for more pistachios. We'd gotten a small new basket from a grateful client. Nothing fancy, but it had a fresh bag tucked in the back. I'd moved it that morning, hidden it in a drawer under some files. Victor rummaged through the visible stuff, frowning when he didn't find what he wanted. He grabbed a sleeve of cheap almonds instead, made a face like they were beneath him, and left. I waited until the door closed. Then I smiled, the first real smile I'd felt in weeks. He was starting to notice things were different. He just didn't know why, and he definitely didn't know it was me. People underestimate quiet women. They think silence means weakness, compliance, fear. They have no idea it can mean the opposite, that silence is where the fire builds, unseen, unstoppable. Victor thought he knew me, thought he knew all of us. He was wrong. The transformation was complete. Now it was time to start moving the pieces, and he wasn't going to like where they landed. New Year's week was quiet in the office. Half the company was still on vacation. The hallways echoed, and the heating system groaned like it was hungover. Perfect cover. I'd spent the break finalizing my plan, not some wild emotional outburst. No, this was going to be precise, layered, the kind of thing that starts small and snowballs until the person at the top can't figure out how it all went wrong. The first move had to be subtle. A seed, something that would make Victor feel the ground shift under him without ever pointing back to me. I started with the baskets themselves. On January 2nd, a new one arrived for our department, smaller than the holiday ones, but still decent. A thank you from a mid-sized client we'd pulled an all-nighter for back in November. It showed up on our table mid-morning. Crackers, chocolate-covered pretzels, a nice wedge of Gouda, and, right in the center, a fresh bag of those same premium pistachios. I waited until everyone was at lunch, then I made my move. I carefully unwrapped the cellophane, removed the pistachios, and replaced them with a bag of the cheapest generic ones I'd bought at Target the night before. Same size, similar packaging, but the nuts inside were stale, oversalted, and tasted like regret. I resealed everything so it looked untouched. Then I placed the real pistachios in a drawer at my desk. Right on schedule, Victor appeared at 2:47 p.m. He'd clearly been waiting for fresh prey. I saw it in the way his eyes lit up when he spotted the new basket. He didn't even say hello, just walked straight over and started browsing. I kept typing, head down, but watched from the corner of my eye. He went for the pistachio bag first, ripped it open with that same smug confidence, poured a big handful, threw them in his mouth. Crunch. His face changed instantly. Not dramatic, no spitting or gagging, just a flicker, a tightening around the eyes. He chewed slower, swallowed, took one more to be sure. Then he grimaced, actually grimaced. Huh, he muttered, loud enough for the whole room to hear. These are off. He stared at the bag like it had personally betrayed him, poured a few into his palm, examined them, then tossed the whole handful back in. Guess not every vendor knows quality when they see it, he said, trying to laugh it off, but his voice had an edge. He grabbed a couple of the chocolate pretzels instead, safe choice, then left faster than usual. The second he was gone, Jen looked over at me. Did he just get bad nuts? I shrugged, innocent. Maybe that brand's inconsistent. She snorted. Karma's got a sense of humor. I smiled and went back to my screen, but inside, my pulse was racing. First seed planted. That same week, I made my second move, digital this time. I created an anonymous email address through an encrypted service. No name, no trace. Then I sent a short, polite message to HR's ethics hotline. Subject: question about holiday gift policy. I've noticed some inconsistency in how client gift baskets are handled across departments. Certain high-value items seem to be retained personally by executives rather than logged or redistributed per company policy, Section 4.7 of the Employee Handbook. Happy to provide details if needed, but wanted to flag it anonymously first. No accusations, no names, just a gentle nudge. I hit send at 2:13 a.m. from a coffee shop Wi-Fi 3 neighborhoods away. By Friday, I saw the ripple. An all-staff email went out from HR, a friendly reminder about gift declaration procedures. All baskets over $100 in estimated value needed to be logged with finance by end of day Monday, executives included. No exceptions.
I watched Victor's reaction from across the open floor when he read it in his glass office. His jaw tightened. He leaned back in his chair longer than usual. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. Voice low, expression dark. He didn't come by our floor that day, or the next, but I knew he was thinking about it. I kept planting. Casual conversations in the elevator with admins from other departments. Did you guys have to log all your baskets? Ours got flagged even though it was tiny. Just enough to make it seem like a company-wide thing, not targeted. A quiet word to Marcus, who has a cousin in finance. Hey, random question. Do execs actually declare those big vendor baskets, or... Marcus grinned. You kidding? Half those guys treat them like birthday presents. I nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, feels kind of unfair when the rest of us get nothing. He paused. You know what? You're right. That was all I needed. By the end of the week, Victor was restless. I saw him pacing in his office, saw him stop by the executive break room more often, like he was checking if anyone was talking about him. He started bringing his own snacks from home, fancy trail mix in a monogrammed container, like he didn't trust what was out there anymore. And he stopped coming to our floor entirely. Not because he'd learned his lesson, because he was starting to feel watched. The baskets in his office, still untouched, but now they looked less like trophies and more like evidence. I sat at my desk one afternoon eating the real pistachios I saved, the good ones, slowly, one at a time. They tasted perfect, rich, expensive, mine. Victor had no idea that the first pieces were already moving, but he was starting to feel the pressure, and I was just getting started.
January rolled in like a slow-moving storm. The holiday decorations came down, the city traded twinkling lights for gray slush, and the office settled into that post-holiday grind where everyone pretends to be productive while secretly counting down to summer. But for Victor Hargrove, the new year didn't feel fresh. It felt off. I watched it happen in small, delicious ways. It started with the baskets in his office. Those 3 beautiful, untouched holiday towers that had been sitting behind his desk like trophies. One morning, they were gone. Relocated, I guessed, to his trunk or his lake house or wherever entitled men hide things they suddenly worry might look bad. He stopped bringing his monogrammed trail mix to meetings, started eating plain protein bars instead, unwrapping them quietly, like he didn't want anyone to notice he was snacking at all. And he still hadn't come back to our floor, not once since the HR reminder email. But the pressure was building. I could see it in the little things. The way he'd pause in the hallway when groups of people were talking, head tilted like he was trying to catch snippets of conversation. The way he started closing his office door more often, even during open hours when he used to keep it wide like a peacock displaying feathers. The way his laugh got louder in executive meetings, but his eyes kept darting around the table like he was waiting for someone to say something. I stayed perfectly still, perfectly silent. At my desk, I was the same reliable Alara, headphones on, deliverables early, quick to help when someone needed a formula debugged. Jen even commented one day, "You seem lighter lately. Good holiday?" "Something like that," I said, smiling just enough. But inside, I was feeding the fire. The second wave hit when finance sent out a follow-up, a polite but firm email. Friendly reminder, gift logs due EOD today. Any undeclared items over $100 may need to be reported for tax purposes. Please see attached form. Attached was a spreadsheet with columns for sender, estimated value, recipient, and final disposition, redistributed, donated, or retained with approval. I watched Victor read it from across the floor. His face didn't change much, but I saw his shoulders stiffen. He forwarded it immediately to his assistant with a one-line note. I could see the preview pop up on the big monitor behind his glass wall. Handle this. By afternoon, rumors were circulating. Apparently, a couple of junior execs had gotten nervous and started asking questions in the finance channel on Slack. Do we really have to list every basket? What if we already ate some? Is this coming from legal? No one had a clear answer, but the uncertainty was spreading. Victor's paranoia kicked in hard. I saw him corner the CFO in the elevator lobby one morning, voice low but sharp.
"This gift thing feels like overreach. Who pushed for the audit trail?" The CFO shrugged. "Board wants cleaner books after that IRS spotlight last year. Nothing personal." Victor didn't look convinced. That same week, I planted another seed. This one was riskier. I used the anonymous email again, this time to a mid-level manager in procurement who I knew disliked Victor. The message was short. "I've noticed certain vendors send significantly larger gifts to specific executives than to others. Might be worth checking if that influences contract renewals. Section 5.2 of the vendor policy covers appearance of favoritism." No proof attached, just enough to make someone curious. 2 days later, procurement announced a routine review of vendor gifting patterns. Victor got pulled into a closed-door meeting that afternoon. He came out red-faced, tie loosened, barking at his assistant for coffee. He started looking tired, really tired. Dark circles under the eyes, snapping at people over tiny things. Like when the printer jammed, he slammed the tray so hard the whole machine rattled. He stopped making his usual rounds entirely. No more checking in on Teams. No more booming laughter in the hallways. Instead, he'd huddle in his office with the door closed, phone pressed to his ear, voice rising and falling in frustrated waves. I heard fragments when I walked past to the restroom. "Who's asking questions? Why now? This is bullshit. Find out who sent that reminder." He was starting to feel hunted, and the best part, he had no idea where it was coming from. He still smiled at me in passing, tight, forced. Still said, "Good work, Alara," when he saw my name on a report, but his eyes lingered a second too long now, like he was trying to read something in my face. He wouldn't find it. I was too calm, too steady. While his world started to shrink, mine was expanding. I'd lie in bed at night, not tossing and turning anymore, but planning, visualizing the next moves, feeling the anger transform into something cleaner, sharper, power. The stakes were rising fast. HR was whispering about a possible ethics training refresh, finance was asking for receipts, procurement was pulling old invoices, and Victor, he was starting to crack. He just didn't know how many more layers were coming, or how tightly the net was already closing. I ate the last of the real pistachios that night, slowly, savoring every single one. They still tasted perfect, and soon he'd never taste them again.
February crept into Chicago like a thief. Bitter cold, short days, and a wind that found every gap in your coat. The office felt the same. Quiet on the surface, but underneath, everything was tightening. Victor was unraveling in slow motion. I watched it every day. He'd lost weight. Not much, but enough that his tailored suits hung a little looser at the shoulders. The salt and pepper hair looked more salt than pepper now, like the stress had bleached it overnight. He still strode through the hallways with that executive swagger, but it was forced. You could see it in the way his eyes scanned every room he entered, searching for threats. The systems I'd set in motion were closing in from every direction, and he could feel them, even if he didn't know who was pulling the strings. First came the gift log fallout. Finance finished their review in late January. The report wasn't public, but pieces leaked the way they always do in an office like ours. Whispers in the break room, screenshots of redacted emails. Someone in accounting let slip that 3 executives had incomplete declarations. Victor's name wasn't said out loud, but everyone knew. He got called into a one-on-one with the CFO and head of legal. I saw him walk in with his usual confidence, chin up, folder in hand. He came out 43 minutes later looking like he'd aged 5 years. Tie askew, jaw clenched so tight, I thought he might crack a tooth. That same week, procurement's routine review turned into something more official. They started requesting documentation on vendor gifts going back 2 years. Not just baskets, golf outings, event tickets, bottles of wine that cost more than my rent. Victor had always been sloppy about the line between professional and personal. Now that sloppiness was catching up. I kept feeding the fire. Another anonymous tip, this time to the board secretary's office, just a polite note with scanned photos attached.
Victor's untouched baskets in his office from December, timestamped, side by side with photos of our rated ones. No commentary needed. The contrast spoke for itself. Then I looped in the one person who could make it personal. Marcus's cousin in finance owed him a favor. I didn't ask for anything illegal, just a quiet question during a happy hour. Hey, do execs ever get flagged for undeclared income on those big vendor gifts? IRS treats them as taxable, right? Word got around. By mid-February, Victor was audited. Not a full IRS nightmare yet, but an internal one. HR required him to submit personal receipts for anything he'd retained from client gifts. He had to account for every bottle, every box of chocolates, every bag of pistachios. His assistant spent days digging through old emails and delivery logs, looking panicked. I watched him in meetings now. He used to dominate every room, voice booming, cutting people off, steering every discussion his way. Now he was quieter, more defensive. When someone mentioned policy compliance, his eyes would dart around the table like he was waiting for an accusation. He started avoiding eye contact with the analytics team altogether. No more drive-by compliments for me. No more walking past our floor. If he needed something from our department, he sent an email, impersonal, curt. But the real cracks showed in private. One afternoon, I stayed late to finish a report. The floor was mostly empty, lights dimmed. I heard raised voices from the executive wing. Victor's office door cracked open just enough. "You need to find out who's behind this," he was saying, voice low and furious. "This isn't random. Someone's targeting me." His assistant murmured something I couldn't catch. "No, it's not just policy," he snapped. "It's personal. The timing, the photos, someone's feeding them ammo." He slammed something, a fist on the desk maybe. The sound echoed down the empty hallway. I sat frozen at my desk, heart pounding, but not from fear, from satisfaction. Every stolen pistachio flashed through my mind. Every smug rich man's nut comment. Every raise denied. Every time he'd made us feel small. I felt it all surging back, not as pain now, but as fuel. The emotional payoff was starting to brew, warm and steady in my chest. But I didn't smile, didn't celebrate. Not yet. I just closed my laptop, walked to the elevator, and rode down in silence. Outside, the city was dark and frozen, but I didn't feel the cold. The trap was almost closed. Multiple systems were locked in now. Finance had his gift history flagged. Procurement was questioning vendor relationships he personally nurtured. HR had a file growing thicker by the week. The board had quietly requested an ethics review for certain senior leaders. And the best part? No one was looking at me. I was still the quiet analyst, still early with deliverables, still the one who helped debug formulas without being asked. Invisible, unsuspected, while Victor's world shrank smaller every day. He stopped eating lunch in the executive dining room, started bringing salads from home in Tupperware, like he didn't trust anything provided by the company anymore. He canceled his annual golf trip to Arizona, told people it was family obligations. He started leaving the office early, unheard of for him. And one Thursday in late February, I saw the final sign. The nameplate outside Victor's office was gone. Just bare wood where Victor Hargrove, VP of Operations, used to be. Rumor was they'd asked him to work from home pending the reviews. He wasn't fired, not yet, but he was isolated, cornered. The collapse was imminent. I could feel it in the air, like the moment right before a thunderstorm breaks. All the pieces were in place. One more push, and it would all come down. I walked home that night along the river, city lights shimmering on the ice. I didn't feel powerless anymore. I felt unstoppable. And Victor? Well, he was about to learn what it feels like when someone takes everything from you, one calculated bite at a time.
March blew into Chicago with a fake promise of spring. One warm day, then a blizzard that dumped 6 inches overnight and laughed at everyone who dared to put away their winter coats. The office mirrored the weather. Calm on the surface, chaos underneath. Victor was barely showing up now. Working remotely, his assistant would say with a tight smile when anyone asked, but we all knew what that meant. He'd been placed on administrative leave pending the completion of the ethics review. His office door stayed locked. The big monitor behind the glass was dark. The nameplate never went back up. Inside the company, the whispers had turned into open conversation. It started in Slack channels, a thread in #general about upcoming leadership changes. Someone posted a vague, "Heard some execs are under scrutiny. Anyone know details?" Within hours, replies poured in. Not accusations, nothing that could get anyone in trouble, just questions, stories. Remember those huge baskets in VH's office? Yeah, and how ours always disappeared? Finance asked me about vendor gifts from 2 years ago. Wild. By the end of the week, it wasn't whispers anymore. It was emails. The board sent a company-wide message on a Friday afternoon, the kind that lands in your inbox right when you're packing up to leave, so you have the whole weekend to stew on it. Subject: Update on Organizational Integrity Review. The message was carefully worded, full of corporate speak about commitment to our values and thorough, impartial process. But between the lines, it was clear. Findings had been made. Actions would be taken. Leadership transitions were coming. Victor's name wasn't mentioned. It didn't need to be. Everyone knew. I sat at my desk reading it, face neutral, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was the moment the truth started bleeding into the open. Not the full story, not yet, but enough for his image to crack wide open. Monday morning, the executive floor felt different. People walked slower past his office, like it was a crime scene. His assistant was packing up personal items, framed photos, a golf trophy, the monogrammed mug he'd used for years. She wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. By lunchtime, the story had reached every corner of the building. I was in the break room heating up soup when 2 directors from sales walked in, talking freely because they thought they were alone. "It's Hargrove," one said, pouring coffee. "Gift policy violations, potential conflict of interest with vendors. Board's furious. Apparently, there's a paper trail a mile long." The other shook his head. "Man, he always acted like he was untouchable. Guess not." I kept my back to them, stirring my soup slowly, letting every word sink in. Untouchable. Not anymore. Victor tried to control the narrative, of course. He sent an email to his direct reports late that afternoon, forwarded to half the company by accident within minutes. Subject: Personal update. In it, he talked about taking time to focus on family and mutually agreeing to explore new opportunities. Thanked everyone for their support, wished the company continued success. It was textbook damage control. Dignified, professional. But nobody bought it. Replies in the forwarded chain were brutal. LOL, mutually agreeing, sure, Jan. Family time equals forced out. Wonder how many baskets he's eating at home now. I read them in the restroom stall, phone hidden, a small, sharp smile pulling at my lips. His reputation, the thing he'd spent decades building, was shattering in real time. People who used to laugh at his jokes now rolled their eyes when his name came up. People who'd fought for his approval now distanced themselves fast. Even the C-suite kept their doors closed when talking about him. I stayed composed, calm. I didn't forward emails, didn't comment in Slack, didn't smirk in meetings. I just watched and listened and felt the power shift, like the air pressure changing right before lightning strikes. That Thursday, the final crack appeared. The company announced an all-hands town hall for the following week. Agenda, leadership update, and Q&A. Everyone knew what that meant. Victor wasn't coming back. His corner office would be cleared out by Friday. His badge access had already been revoked. I saw security escorting him in one last time to collect his things. He kept his head down, face blank, carrying a single banker's box. He didn't look at anyone, not even in the direction of our floor. The exposure was complete. His arrogance, his entitlement, his casual cruelty, it was all out in the open now. People saw him for what he was, and they weren't kind about it. I walked home that night through slushy streets, the city lights reflecting in puddles like broken glass. My chest felt light for the first time in months. Not because it was over, but because the next part was coming.
the part where he learned exactly who had taken him down and why. The anticipation was electric, peak level. One final move, and the power dynamic would reverse completely. He thought he was the rich man. Soon, he'd understand what it feels like to have everything stolen from you, one deliberate handful at a time.
The town hall was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a raw Thursday in early March. The entire company was told to join virtually or in person in the main conference center on the lobby level. No excuses. Attendance tracked. I took the elevator down with the rest of the analytics team, coffee in hand, face calm. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The room was packed, rows of chairs, big screen at the front, camera set up for the remote folks. The air smelled like tension and burnt coffee. People whispered, phones hidden under tables, everyone waiting for the shoe to drop. The CEO opened with the usual script: strong performance, exciting roadmap, commitment to culture. Then he paused. "As many of you are aware," he said, voice steady, "we've recently concluded an internal review into certain compliance matters. We take our values seriously, and when issues are identified, we act decisively." He introduced the head of HR and the outside counsel who'd led the investigation. They walked through a slide deck, high-level, sanitized, but damning. Undeclared gifts totaling thousands of dollars, appearance of favoritism with key vendors, unequal treatment of departments, violation of multiple policies. No name on the slides, still didn't need to be. Then came the announcement. Effective immediately, Victor Hargrove is no longer with Apex Dynamics. We thank him for his past contributions and wish him well in his future endeavors. A ripple went through the room. Some gasps, some awkward coughs. A few people shifted in their seats like they'd been holding their breath for weeks. The CEO opened the floor for questions. That's when I stood up. Every eye turned to me. Jen's mouth actually fell open a little bit. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. I walked to the microphone in the aisle, heels clicking on the polished floor. My hands weren't shaking. My voice didn't waver. "I have a question," I said, clear and calm, "and a statement." The CEO nodded. "Go ahead, Ilara." I felt the room hold its breath. "For years," I began, "one executive repeatedly took holiday gifts meant for lower-level departments, gifts we rarely received, while hoarding his own. He did this openly, brazenly. He interrupted meetings to do it. He mocked us while doing it, called premium items the rich man's nut while eating food we'd been excited to share as a team." Murmurs spread. People were leaning forward now. I have documentation, photos, timestamps, witness statements from multiple departments, emails, even the anonymous tips that started the investigation. Those were mine. I turned to the camera, knowing Victor was almost certainly watching from wherever he was hiding. I did it because no one else would, because speaking up directly would have cost me my job, because people like him count on people like us staying quiet. I looked back at the leadership table. You didn't find this because of some routine audit. You found it because one person decided enough was enough, and I'm not sorry. Silence. Dead silence. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slow at first, then another, then half the room. By the time I sat down, it was thunderous. The CEO didn't stop it. He just waited, face unreadable. Afterward, the head of HR asked to speak with me privately. I expected a reprimand, a warning about process. Instead, she closed the door and said, "We suspected the tips came from inside the analytics team. We just didn't know who. Thank you, Ilara. What you did took courage." They already knew most of it. My evidence just sealed it. That afternoon, Victor's termination was official. But the real climax came 24 hours later. I was at home, glass of wine in hand, when my phone lit up with an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: "You win." It was him.
Ilara, I know it was you. The photos, the timing, the town hall, all of it. You think you're some kind of hero now. You destroyed my career over nuts, over gift baskets, over pride. I built things you'll never understand. I made decisions that kept this company running while you sat in your cubicle crunching numbers. Enjoy your little victory. It won't last. Victor. I read it twice. Then I smiled and hit reply. Victor, you're right about one thing. This was about pride. Mine. You took things that weren't yours. You made people feel small to make yourself feel big. You denied raises, stole credit, and literally ate our joy while calling it the rich man's nut. I didn't destroy your career. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it. And no, I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who got tired of watching men like you take whatever you want without consequence. Enjoy your early retirement. P.S. The pistachios were never about the money. They were about respect. You never gave us any. Now you know how it feels to have yours taken away. Ilara. I hit send, then I blocked the address. The next morning, the company announced my promotion. Interim head of analytics, significant raise, direct report to the CFO. The team threw an impromptu celebration in the break room. Real food this time, not baskets. We ordered deep dish and champagne. Jen hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. You absolute legend. Marcus just shook his head, grinning. Rich man's nut. Damn. I stood there in the middle of it all, surrounded by people who finally saw me. Really saw me. The power dynamic hadn't just reversed, it had shattered. Victor was gone, blacklisted in the industry, reputation in ruins. And I was full. Not with pistachios, with something far richer. Justice. Cold. Deliberate. Completely earned. And it tasted perfect.
It's been 9 months now. Chicago has gone through its usual seasons. A brutal spring that teased warmth and then dumped snow in April. A humid summer where the lakefront became my sanctuary. And now fall, with leaves turning along the riverwalk and that crisp bite in the air that makes the city feel alive again. A lot has changed. Victor Hargrove is gone. Really gone. I heard through the grapevine, because Chicago's corporate world is smaller than it looks, that he tried to land at 2 competitor firms. Both pulled their offers after background checks. Word travels fast when a termination involves ethics violations. He's consulting now, supposedly, freelance. From what I can tell, it's a polite way of saying he's struggling. His LinkedIn is frozen in time. No new posts, no congratulations on the new chapter. The lake house went up for sale last month. Couldn't afford the taxes anymore. I don't check on him often. Once was enough. The company, we're different now. After the town hall, the board didn't just stop at Victor. They rolled out real changes. Transparent gift policies, mandatory declaration for anything over $50, redistribution rules so lower-level teams actually get to enjoy what clients send. Our department got 3 full baskets last holiday season, untouched by executive hands. We ate every single pistachio ourselves, slowly, together, laughing. I'm head of analytics now, permanent, not interim. My team reports directly to the CFO, who still thanks me in private for having the courage to speak up. Raises came through for everyone this year, real ones, not the 1.5% crumbs we used to fight over. Jen got promoted, Marcus too. The culture isn't perfect, corporate life never is, but it's better. People look each other in the eye again. They speak up in meetings without glancing around first. I bought a condo last spring. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine. High floor, lake view on a clear day, big windows that let the light pour in. I put up a tree this year, real one. Decorated it with my team after our holiday lunch. We drank champagne and ate pistachios straight from the bag, the good kind. I still think about that first day he walked in and said, "Rich man's nut." I think about how small he made us feel, how small he made me feel. And I think about how far I've come from that woman with shaking hands and a dry throat, standing frozen while someone stole what little joy we had.
I'm not her anymore. I grew into someone stronger, calmer, someone who knows her worth isn't decided by men like Victor, someone who understands that silence can be a weapon, patience can be power, and justice, when it's earned, tastes richer than any premium nut ever could. Sometimes on quiet evenings, I sit by my window with a glass of wine and watch the city lights flicker on. I think about karma, not the fluffy version people post on Instagram, but the real kind, the kind that doesn't always show up dramatically. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical, one calculated step at a time. Victor thought he was untouchable because no one ever pushed back. He forgot that the people he stepped on are the same ones who keep the world running. And when one of us decides we've had enough, we don't always scream. Sometimes we just move the pieces, slowly, deliberately, until the whole board flips. I don't hate him anymore. I don't need to. He's living the consequences every day, and I'm living proof that you can take your power back without losing yourself in the process. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever watched someone take what was yours and walk away smiling, if you've ever swallowed your rage because speaking up felt impossible, know this: you are not powerless. You are not disposable. Your pride, your joy, your dignity, they're worth protecting. And when the time comes, you don't have to let them steal your rich man's nut. You can take the whole damn bag and savor every single one.